Hi guys! Today we'll be recapping a story called Protecting the Witch's Son. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot. Enjoy! The sky is blue and the weather is perfect when Elaine's stepmother suddenly pulls her out of the carriage and smiles, asking her to wait until she returns with her father. However, when the sky grew darker and Elaine waited in vain, her stepmother never came back. And there she was, Elaine Christasha, a young noble girl abandoned to face the world on her own. The typical evil stepmoms. A year has passed and our poor little baby is now 9 years old, looking shabby outside a bakery, eyeing the freshly baked bread. The owner offers to give her one, but Elaine declines, stating that she is fine because she has collected wild strawberries from the woods and would return the bread once she has enough money. Still, while warning her that there are monsters lurking in the woods, the owner decides to give her the leftovers from yesterday, aka the already molded slices, and smiles, saying that she can come whenever she's hungry, but only when no one is around. That is such fake kindness you have there, lady! Even Elaine is dejected, yet she is appreciative for even the smallest act of generosity, because it means she may now sleep with a full belly. You're probably asking why she didn't go home when she's already old enough, right? Not only was she a noble little girl who knew so little, she also lacked the funds to hire a carriage. It was winter when she was abandoned, but seeing the town bulletin board made her feel warm and fuzzy inside. She knew her stepmom wouldn't miss her, but she genuinely thought her father would. There was news regarding her family, but to her disappointment, it was only an announcement about hiring workers for the family's first son's birthday party. And as a result, Elaine decided not to go back to her family. Back to the present, Elaine is looking around and is overjoyed to find an abandoned blanket she can use for tonight, unaware that it is a trap set by a creepy-looking man who is already behind her. She is unable to make it to the forest and hide from the man, who is now carrying a knife, making her even more terrified. Elaine slumps down, unable to believe that this is happening to her when she has never asked for anything more than a place to sleep. Thankfully, our girl is not so weak, so she slaps herself to get rid of her negative thoughts and instead focuses on escaping. However, as she makes her way into the forest, she comes across a massive monster with a man already hanging in his mouth, causing her knees to give out. This time, she merely laughs at how her life will end until someone from behind blasts a blue flame, quickly killing the creature. Just as Elaine is about to pass out, she glances over her shoulder and sees a stunning woman with purple eyes and black hair. I just know this is Mommy! After waking up in a warm room the following day, Elaine chooses to lie down again and pretend to sleep after hearing someone's footsteps. She hears two people conversing. One of them is the beautiful lady who saved her, Bella, while the other is a guy with long white hair and red eyes named Acefel, who advises her to release the child because she witnessed her using magic. Despite Miss Pretty's pouting remark that not all humans are terrible, the man leaves the room having made his position very clear that he will never accept a human child. I see. I guess this visual couple will become our girl's new parents, huh? Anyway, once Acefel leaves, Elaine decides to sit up, feeling all fuzzy inside, when Bella touches her forehead, and is relieved that her fever has subsided. Seeing the blue flames from yesterday, Elaine realizes that the sweet lady in front of her is a witch from the legends she has heard, and she decides to carefully question her if she is one, to which Bella confirms that is how humans refer to her. But when Elaine asks Bella how she identifies herself as if interested in getting to know her, her purple eyes light up with surprise. Bella gets excited to share with Elaine her name and giggles since it's the first time anyone has ever asked her anything different. And when she discovers that Elaine does not want to go back home, Bella takes her hand and offers that she can stay if she wants. This time, it's her emerald eyes that sparkle as she revels in her newfound home. But her fears that Bella's husband may not approve make Bella laugh. It appears that Acefel isn't her lover, but rather a friend. And not just any friend, but a demon. I love how chill Bella is, just casually sharing this info with a child. After spending days with Bella, she washes her face in the stream today and can't help but think that Acefel hates her because demons in general despise humans. All of a sudden, she trips and falls, and only that dashing demon manages to save her. What did they say again? A witch and a demon? Totally false, because all I see are heavenly beings. A god and a goddess. Elaine stutters while conveying her appreciation to Aesfel for saving her from a fall. When he gives her a silent reaction, she instinctively stops him from walking away by calling his name, something she learned from Bella, forcing Aesfel to finally speak up and tell her that she does not belong in their place, while glaring at her and pushing her to leave immediately. However, as a child, Elaine wonders if he's uttering those words to her simply because she's human, but it appears that it is not, since after spending time with Bella, Aesfel's taste for humans disappeared. I have trust issues, but these two look alike. Is this a sign of a soon-to-be happy family? Anyway, Aesfel chooses to clarify the reason why he doesn't want her around, and that is by first sharing with her that Bella has had a lonely long life as a witch, and he feels this is the reason why she became so attached to humans. But in the end, every single human betrayed Bella's trust in some way, whether it was when she choked on poisoned wine from someone she trusted or when she was stabbed in her sleep by someone she had welcomed into her home. This was all because these humans desperately wanted eternal life and foolishly believed that drinking a witch's blood would give them that. Despite everything, Bella brought another human, her, and Aesfel wants nothing more than to never see Bella hurt over a human again, so he begs her to leave and never come back. Our pretty witch is incredibly kind, and Aesfel looks hopelessly in love. After hearing this, Elaine looks at Aesfel with determined eyes as she declares that she wants to stay with Bella, the one who supported her in her time of need. Bella was the first to extend kindness to her, the first to make her feel loved, and while smiling so sweetly, she swears not to let Bella lose her smile, unaware that Bella is hiding behind a tree, moved by what she just heard. Aesfel then notices Bella's presence, forcing him to sigh and accept Elaine, but with a warning that he will dispose of her if she poses a threat, while Elaine gratefully accepts. On that day, the three of them started to become more like a family. As time passed, Bella taught her the art of swordsmanship, and together they traveled across the continent. In the 5th year of her life with Bella, a new presence enters their life. He was Lloyd de Filon, the crown prince of the kingdom of Filon. Shortly after, Bella and Prince Lloyd fell deeply in love, joyfully welcoming their first child, Rhys de Filon, lovingly called Rhee. Wait, hold on, that was fast. How about our lovely demon? 3 years later, while savoring coffee in the kingdom of Filon, Bella inquires about Lloyd's birthday gift for their son's approaching birthday, but to her surprise, it appears that her husband has finished all the arrangements for their son's party. As they talk, he spots her necklace, one he hasn't seen before, and inquires about when she got it, leading Bella to beam as she holds the pendant that His Majesty gifted her in gratitude for her exceptional care of Rhee. However, she notices his shift in mood, prompting Lloyd to crack a smile and clarify that he is simply surprised that his father would give her something like that. After a servant interrupts their conversation to tell them that Lloyd has a cabinet meeting, Lloyd smiles lovingly at his wife and promises to return for lunch before he goes. A crown prince plus a blondie? Is he bad? Meanwhile, a swordsmith is astonished by Elaine's ability to acquire solive, a rare material for the sword. Whoa, she seems stronger. Well, our 20-year-old Elaine just smiles, fully aware that she is ready to do anything for Rhee. She then learns from the swordsmith that her request will be completed in a month, so she has no choice but to return by that time. On her way, a smile brightens Elaine's face at the thought of baby Rhee, knowing he will be overjoyed with her gift since it is just what the little boy requested for his 3rd birthday. Back to the palace, Bella is feeding little Rhee, but her mind is on Lloyd, who is rarely late. Bella's personal maid then knocks on her door, informing her that when she checked, no one was inside the cabinet chamber. But after questioning another maid where the ministers had gone, she discovers that everyone, including Prince Lloyd, had headed towards the altar building. Bella decides to investigate because something doesn't feel right. Before leaving, she pats Rhee's head and promises to find his papa and return soon. He's a cheater, is he? Bella enters the altar chamber, but as she walks along the corridor, she senses a disturbing presence, and the further she goes, the stronger the oppressive energy becomes. She comes to a halt at an open door that leads to a restricted zone, and as she enters inside, she gets shivers all over, but she continues to follow the unpleasant energy. Bella then pauses, her eyes locked on a chilling sight before her. A room bathed in an eerie red glow with Lloyd sprawled disturbingly in the center. Bella's eyes reflect an eerie mix of fear and confusion as she cries out for her husband, who lies motionless on a table, surrounded by strange markings on the floor. What is this sudden tragedy happening here? She goes over to her lover and starts sobbing in an attempt to rouse him from his slumber. However, there is already too much blood for her to do much other than embrace him and beg him to open his eyes. Bella then hears someone, and as she turns to see who it is, she is met with a shocking sight. Lloyd's father, the Emperor, stands before her and, oh my, holding his son's heart in his hand. Bella screams in anguish at the Emperor for taking the life of his own son. But in an instant, a sharp pain pierces her head, and the necklace he gave her begins to radiate light, leading her to finally realize its true nature. She's read about it before, and it's an item that, when offered a blood sacrifice, unleashes a curse. The Eye of the Demonic Dragon. I really thought that the Crown Prince was evil, but it turns out that he is just a good-hearted romantic with an evil father. Bella tries to remove it fast, but it won't budge, prompting the Emperor to smirk sinisterly as he explains that once the curse is activated, it cannot be removed, and she is now under his control. He speaks with such pride, revealing that the power has intensified due to the sacrifice of Lloyd's blood, causing Bella's fury to rise. Yet she feels utterly powerless as the necklace consumes her thoughts, her eyes darkening, and all that echoes in her mind is the chilling command to kill. This is really bad. Meanwhile, Elaine is making her way home as quickly as she can, as she has been feeling uneasy throughout her trip. However, upon her arrival, blue flames engulf the town, people scream, and dead bodies litter the place. She is so confused, but she is certain of one thing. These blue flames are Bella's, so she rushes up to the palace to see what's going on, when she notices Bella in the distance. When Elaine tries to softly call Bella's name, Bella reacts violently, attacking her with her bare, bloody, sharp fists. Fortunately, Elaine swiftly brands her sword in defense, but to her horror, she sees the Bella who rescued her. The same Bella who always smiles, now with a blood-stained face and black-purple eyes. This just broke my heart. I really want her to live a good life with her loving family. Please, save her, Elaine. Elaine attempts to communicate with Bella once more, but her efforts are in vain as Bella sends her flying with her powerful attack. With her head already bleeding, Elaine begins to cough up blood and becomes convinced that Bella is completely out of control. So she gets to her feet and tries to devise a plan to bring her down. However, before she can do so, Bella is already in front of her, almost taking her head, but phew, thank goodness Elaine has such good reflexes from all her training that she avoids a critical hit, but is stabbed in the shoulder. Where is Acefell when we need him? Regardless, Elaine notices the necklace Bella is wearing during her close-range attack and immediately thinks it's connected to the situation. So she launches herself forward, aiming for a decisive blow. She manages to get past Bella's flame strike and grabs the necklace, but not without the devastating cost of her heart being ripped out by Bella's hand. The curse begins to vanish, and our sweet and pure Bella is horrified to discover what she's just done, as Elaine collapses to the ground, her eyes losing sight, and all she can think about is apologizing to Bella for arriving late. History records that on that day, a single witch brought Sebeka, the capital city of Phelan, to ruin. I really have a bad feeling about this. Elaine is now in her subconscious, listening to Bella apologize to her and accept full responsibility for what happened. Bella's heart aches because she knows she will never be able to bring back the lives she has killed, but she resolves to save Elaine's life by giving over her own heart. Bella then breaks down softly, her lips curving into a faint smile as she asks Elaine to look after Ree on her behalf. I mean, as the protagonist, I'm expecting Elaine to make it out alive, but the writer really needs us to make us suffer before that can happen. Elaine immediately wakes up, screaming Bella's name, and freezes as she realizes her chest has stopped bleeding, confirming that Bella did give her heart. She begins to cry because she is frustrated that Bella is giving it to her and devastated by the loss of the sweetest person she knows. But then the necklace pops into her head, so she hurriedly rumbles inside her pocket to grab a piece of paper, bites her finger to use it as a marker to trace the markings she remembers on the necklace, and pledges to uncover who did this to Bella and make them pay. Time for revenge and make the Emperor suffer. Elaine is now walking through a field, puzzled by the lack of people living there. She, like us, wants to know what happened to Acefell, Lloyd, who we know has died, and Reese, especially because the ruined palace earlier seemed deserted. However, she flinches at the sight of a swarm of monsters ahead, which is unusual in Sebeka, and decides to sneak through when a fly-type monster spots her. Oh well, it is what it is, and our girl has no issue killing them all in one go because her body feels so light and her mana isn't depleting at all. This reminds her of her training with Bella, who never runs out of breath while fighting because her mana never decreases as a witch, implying that she also inherited Bella's witch powers. With Bella's heart, is our girl still human? Elaine then notices a nearby settlement, so she decides to walk inside an inn dressed as a real baddie with blood all over to ask the owner some questions. She then learns that it is already February 5th, meaning that she has been asleep for 5 days. But when she asks the lady what happened to the survivors in Sebeka, the lady gets confused because this horrible disaster happened 20 years ago. Elaine gets a shiver down her spine, and her eyes widen in surprise at what she just heard. No way, she was asleep for 20 long years? So that answered why no one was around, which also means Reese is now 23 years old, right? Speaking of the young boy we know, Reese is now wiping the blood from his face and appears to be used to being attacked by assassins as he simply smiles at his current situation. Wow, he's grown into a handsome man who resembles his mother. Anyway, after saving the region from destruction, he is now the Duke of Killard, and he leads the Knights of Phalaris, a group of exceptional warriors known for their prowess. However, even with all his success, he is still hated by everyone for being the sun's witch. I badly want her reputation cleared up because she is the kindest. Even after settling into an inn, Elaine can't believe it's been 20 years. Remembering the past, Reese was still a toddler, so she guesses he did not survive it. And the fact that Acefel and Lloyd were not present when she was fighting Bella convinces her to believe that they died before she arrived at Sebeka. After losing everyone she loved, Elaine is at a loss as to what to do with her life. Poor girl! She then decides to go downstairs to get some water to drink, but the innkeeper insists on making her some soup, so she has no choice but to try and enjoy it. The innkeeper sits with her and shares that she feels lonely managing the inn alone and longs for her son's return. She also proudly informs Elaine that her son left a month ago to join the Knights of Phalaris, a group Elaine has never heard of before. This led the innkeeper to question Elaine's origins, as even people from remote areas are familiar with these knights, particularly because their commander is none other than the Duke of Killard, the infamous witch's son, a revelation that shocks Elaine. Upon realizing that the innkeeper is speaking of Duke Reese de Filon, Elaine trembles and starts crying so much as she is so relieved that Bella's son is alive. A few days later, the knights on guard are stunned to see a bloodied lady in front of the Killard castle gates, begging them to open it for her. After a while, Elaine finds herself in the reception room with Lieutenant Lowell of the Knights of Phalaris, who expresses doubt about her assertion that she crossed the dangerous Solve Mountains to save time, given her urgent need to arrive within a week for the entrance exam, and her determination to join the Knights of Phalaris no matter what. Oh, okay, I thought she would go directly to Reese. Lowell doesn't believe she slayed those monsters in the mountain just for an admission exam, making Elaine flinch. But she can never disclose the truth since no one will believe she has been the Sleeping Beauty for the last 20 years. And even if Ree believes her, she still doubts she would ever be able to confess to him that she is responsible for his mother's death. As a result, she explains that she wants to join the Knights because of the high pay and the chance to protect someone, prompting Lowell to remind her that the Philraise Knights are not like other knights. They are knights commissioned by different estates to fight for their behalf, which most of the time involves defeating monsters. Despite his warnings, Lowell appears to be a kind person, since he gets Elaine a room and guarantees to show her the registration site tomorrow. That evening, while Elaine sleeps, she dreams of a peaceful day when everyone she cares about, Bella, Baby Ree, and Aesfel, are playing in the garden. She even jokes with the little kid about who he loves more, her or his mom. But she gets crushed when the innocent boy lightly says his mommy, making both Bella and Aesfel chuckle. But it's all a nightmare because when she turns around, she sees Lloyd with a bleeding chest smiling while Bella dies in front of her. She then wakes up that day sweating and panicking, but she quickly regains her composure once she reminds herself that Ree is alive. She promises herself that she will become strong enough to protect him till the end, so she gladly submits her application today and can't wait to finally meet the little boy she knows. So, who's gonna tell her that Ree is no longer a kid? Lowell goes to Reese's office today to report to him about our girl who came through the Solve Mountains. She said she only made it over the tough mountains by sheer chance, which, considering how dangerous they are, sounds ridiculous. However, Lowell assures Reese that he has confirmed earlier that the girl was not a demon in disguise. But what sparks Reese's interest is Lowell's claim that the lady had arrived for the Phil Ray's Knight's entrance exam. There you have it, Elaine is, in fact, still human. After that, Reese decides to look over our girl's application, and his eyebrows furrow in surprise as he sees the applicant's name. Elaine, a name he hasn't heard in a long time. So, he recalls her? But I'm not holding out much hope considering that he was just 3 when they last met. Elaine is currently at the cafeteria after completing the preliminary until the second rounds of the exam, but she feels let down that she hasn't seen Reese. Suddenly, a man with long golden hair, Kazan, sits next to her, noticing that she's wearing a wristband that only applicants for the Knights of Phil Rays can wear. This guy is about to start a conversation with Elaine, but he finds himself unable to do so because the other table is so loud, with one aristocrat boasting to his friends that the exam is easy for a mighty knight like him. This nobleman, McGaff, even flaunts his wristband, prompting the other man to begin pointing at Elaine, a girl who he realizes has the same wristband, stinging McGaff's pride, so he accuses Elaine of stealing it. However, seeing that Elaine is such an unbothered queen, McGaff becomes enraged and remarks that the Knights of Phil Rays are no longer elite since they allow trash like Elaine to join. This is something she can easily ignore, but things take a turn when this man begins to make fun of Ree for being the son of a witch, and goes as far as mentioning that the Duke may have obtained his position through some sort of witchcraft. Elaine's hand trembles in anger, and she walks behind McGaff, ordering him to retract what he said. If looks can kill, this man has already died. Oh well, advance rip, mister. Elaine doesn't care whether she's making a scene right now. She simply confronts this big guy, telling him he can mock her all he wants, but she will never let it slide if he continues to insult the Duke, while giving him a death gaze. But McGaff simply smirks at her and asks aloud why she's supporting the son of the witch, causing everyone to mutter slurs of disgust and hate. Elaine finds this infuriating. Like, how can they detest him when he has never done anything wrong? Even this morning, as she finishes sending in her application, she overhears people criticizing the Knights of Phil Rays simply because they serve Ree. When a guy tries to defend their Duke, one girl yells in outrage, declaring that she will never forgive the witch for killing her grandparents and burning down their hometown. So the fact that the murderer's blood flows through their Duke's veins disgusts her. This must be extremely difficult for Ree, but hearing this makes me even more sorry for Bella. Kazan decides to butt in and criticize McGaff, causing the aristocrat to become enraged and charge towards him with a knife, prompting our girl to slightly show off her strength by effortlessly grabbing McGaff's hand, making him immobile. Then, choked with ego, he shouts, "I am McGaff from Eladia!" He thought everyone would recognize him, but instead, the room fell silent while Elaine gives him a "so what" expression, making him red with embarrassment. Even the onlookers who don't know him as well begin to snicker, prompting McGaff to vent his rage on Elaine. However, none of his punches manage to touch our girl, while Elaine has easily defeated him with a single punch to the stomach. Kazan begins clapping when he sees his old man kneeling on the floor and is impressed by Elaine's skills, so he extends his hand for a shake in the hopes that they would get along and pass the exam together. For some reason, this Kazan dude gives me the creeps. Following that, the third round of the exam begins, with Elaine passing easily, and I'm surprised to see Kazan pass as well. They've now entered the final phase of the exam, with Lowell explaining that they'll have to enter into the circle they've made for a fight with their final examiner, and their goal is to hold off for 1 minute without stepping outside. Elaine can't help but inquire if the Duke would be their opponent because she's so eager to see Ree. Then, as soon as Elaine says that, the once young kid she knew seems to have turned into a dashing Duke. Now we will see how this reunion plays out. Will he remember her? Will she call his name? I'm sure Elaine sees Ree like family since it's obviously too early for that romance tag. After getting a good look at Ree, Elaine can't help but shed tears over how grown-up he looks to be. But as Ree presents himself to the examiners, he doesn't appear to notice her, and they all just begin the final exam. That was such an anticlimax. The exam kicks off, and every guy who enters the circle with Ree fails, leaving everyone concerned that no one will be able to pass the final round. but not until Elaine's name is called. At long last, she steps into the circle. Her expression looks somewhat sad, while Ree merely recognizes her as the woman who emerged from the Soul Mountain. I knew it! Even I don't recall anyone from when I was 3 years old, so I doubt he will either. As the two begin their sparring, Elaine can't help but think back to the time when she used to play sword with him when he was younger. Even before, Ree aspired to be a swordmaster like her, which made her beam with pride and vow to train him as long as he doesn't overdo it. At the time that they made that promise, the young Ree was brimming with life and smiling all the time, but now, facing him all grown up, those innocent smiles on Ree's face have vanished. She never has the chance to fulfill their promise together, and the fact that he was able to become an outstanding swordsman all by himself makes her feel bad. Wait, how did Ree become so great? Who trained him? I'd like to believe Acevale looked after him, but we haven't seen him since. The moment is not ideal for nostalgia, though, because Ree's attacks are already breaking her sword. So she resolves to focus and continues defending herself for only 20 more seconds. But her sword eventually breaks midway. She cannot fail this exam, so she decides to make it known that she can use sword energy, which surprises Ree because not everyone possesses this skill. Shortly after the 20-second mark, Ree lays down his sword and declares that she passed the test. In the end, he is still unable to recall her even after the sword fight. And even if he could, he would never mistake her for the Elaine he knows, considering she should be at least 40 years old now. Our girl can't help but beam with joy as she bows and thanks Ree. And as she walks away, the handsome Duke keeps looking and appears to be intrigued about her. I have to admit, his thick eyebrows and purple eyes are really striking. The time has come for the knighting ceremony, and it appears that just around 10 candidates, including Kazan, were successful out of hundreds. So this man is strong, but I really can't stand how he keeps appearing next to Elaine. Continuing, Elaine walks forward and kneels before Duke Reese as he knights her to become his devoted knight. And Elaine feels a sorrow in her heart as she promises to protect him on behalf of his mother. She can still remember how Bella cried and asked her for that favor, but she also knows that if Ree discovers that her heart is from his mother, he will be crushed. Our girl keeps blaming herself, yet it is a fact that Bella was the first to kill her, despite being cursed at the time. Still, she pledges she will never tell him about her secret, since she knows Bella will never let her precious son be hurt. But as a compromise, Elaine promises to devote her second life to making Ree's life joyful and safe. No secrets can be hidden, my ladies, so... At the Killyard Palace, they find an unexpectedly large number of knights waiting for them. With a single clap, Lowell calls attention to himself and welcomes everyone. He then goes on to introduce himself as the lieutenant of Duke Reese and the vice commander of the Knights of Filrace. I like this guy. He has such charming and warm features in him. Next to him is Hillier, a pretty lady with blonde hair who has that quiet but deadly kind of vibe, and she also serves as the Knight's vice commander. Lowell then gives them an outline of their work, including the responsibilities of eliminating monsters, and they will not only be tasked with keeping their estate safe, but they must also be prepared to travel to other regions if their services are required. Following that, Lowell makes a special announcement to everyone that the position of the Duke's personal guard is vacant and that anyone can volunteer for it. The room falls silent as he finishes his announcement, leading Lowell to sigh in anticipation that no one would volunteer for the position. That is, until our girl raises her hand to volunteer. Of course she will! That position is perfect for protecting Ree. Elaine beams, but her expression changes when she hears the knights murmur, thinking that she's insane, as if they hadn't just promised loyalty to their commander. Sir Lowell, these men need some discipline. They definitely simply want that huge pay. Elaine ends up sighing, while a brown-haired girl, Sophia, who's behind her, clicks her tongue and looks at her with hatred. From the looks of it, this girl is your typical antagonist who has feelings for the male lead but hates the female lead. After the meeting, Kazan approaches Elaine to question her decision to take up the position of being the Duke's personal guard, which causes Elaine, who's already annoyed by how the other knights acted earlier, to stress that there's nothing wrong with guarding their commander. However, Sophia abruptly interrupts their conversation by sprinting towards Kazan. She plays extra friendly, introducing herself and even sharing that she's been working under their Duke's command for a year. No one gives a hoot, brown-haired girl. Even Kazan can detect that this girl is intentionally ignoring Elaine, but he is unable to take action when Elaine simply walks past them as she excuses herself to see the vice commander. That's better. Stay away from them. But Cezanne being attentive is nice. Does this mean that he simply likes our girl and is not a bad guy? Elaine is making her way to the palace grounds when she notices that it's snowing. So she steps out to enjoy it when she notices a horse charging at her. Don't worry, nothing serious happened because this horse appears to like our girl. So she begins petting the big boy when our pretty lad Ree arrives and mentions that the horse's name is Nyx, prompting her to bow to greet him. Nevertheless, she is taken aback when the Duke advises against her volunteering to be his personal guard, citing the fact that all of his guards have been assassinated and that it would not be shocking if she meets the same fate. The frequent attempts on Ree's life assassination stun Elaine. And the fact that his guards died as a result is also shocking, given that the Filray's knights are among the most formidable knights in their nation. The Emperor must be behind this. In any case, she has never heard of how he's always in danger before, so she clenches her sword and vows she will never die. Her statement makes Ree laugh, but Elaine maintains a serious expression, as she reminds him that he should be aware of her abilities after their sparring session on the final exam. After she flashes him that smug smile and says she's incredibly difficult to kill, Ree becomes silent and decides to let her be his guard. Elaine is relieved and is visibly flaming with determination to protect him at all times, whereas Ree simply leaps on his horse and leaves, mumbling about how strange Elaine is. Does she now look familiar to you, sir? The next day, our girl is gleefully strolling down the hallway because it is her first day as Ree's personal guard, and she can't wait to see him again. But she comes to a stop when she notices that the Vice Commander's office is open. Just as she's about to step inside, she hears Sophia yelling from within. Intrigued, she sneaks a peek and sees Sophia furiously ranting at Lowell, claiming that Elaine was unfairly given the position of personal guard for the Duke, even though she too had volunteered for the position. How could Lowell, the Vice Commander, put up with a knight yelling at him? Sophia immediately rushes out of the office, and when she sees Elaine outside, she is so angry that she purposely runs into her, while Lowell ends up apologizing to Elaine. As Elaine and Lowell make their way to the Duke's office, the Vice Commander decides to spill the beans about Sophia. She volunteered to be Ree's personal guard last year, but Ree flat out refused, which is why Lowell kind of understands Sophia's frustration given that Ree accepted Elaine without a second thought. Well, even at first glance, Sophia looks weak, so I have no doubt that she'll get killed in an instant if there's an assassination. On the other hand, Elaine feels very joyful and warm within as she finally meets someone who's eager to protect Ree. Nah, that girl is obsessed, and we do not welcome that. When they get to the Duke's office, Ree is not there, which leads Lowell to believe that the Duke is still at the training grounds, so he proceeds to fetch him while Elaine waits inside. The red sword on the table catches her sight as she scans the room. But upon closer look, her jaw drops and her eyes widen in shock. Her memory of asking the blacksmith 20 years ago to engrave Ree's initials on the center of the sword is still vivid. And the fact that the sword she's holding now has that identical engraving is proof that this is what she ordered for Ree's 3rd birthday. She's feeling very emotional, but part of her still can't believe Ree has it. After all, Sebeka would have been gone long before this sword was finished. Aw, in the end, the sword still found its rightful owner. However, she suddenly gets a chill as Ree shows up behind her, visibly furious over why she's holding his sword. Sir, she had that made for you, but yeah, valid reaction since he doesn't recall her. Ree quickly takes the sword from Elaine's grasp and glares at her for touching his belongings, leading her to make a fast 90-degree bow and apologize. Ree clenches his teeth, stares at her, and chooses to leave the room while slamming the door. After Ree leaves, our very kind Lowell promptly approaches Elaine to ensure she's okay, and he reveals that Ree is actually not that strict when it comes to his things. Well, except for that sword, which is the Duke's most precious property. Hearing this calms her nerves, but it seems like not even Lowell knows much about it. All he knows is that Ree always carries it with him. Regardless of how Ree got the sword, Elaine is overjoyed to find out that Ree appreciated her present. Meanwhile, while still holding the sword, Ree recalls when he first got it. Balthor, a knight, brought it to him when he was roughly 8 or 9 years old, explaining that he received it from a man in front of the castle gates. The man claimed to be the grandson of the blacksmith who created the sword, and while Balthor had no idea who the man was, he chose to take it after discovering that the person who requested it was a woman named Elaine. The young Ree had no idea who Elaine is, but his eyes lit up when Balthor stated that she is someone his mother loves and welcomes into the family. Even as a small boy, Ree was thorough, so he chose to visit the blacksmith and hear the sword's story firsthand from him. Elaine used to visit this lively blacksmith who had become an old man on his deathbed. He told Ree about how Elaine requested the sword and departed to return to Sebeka that day. But that was also the day the city was destroyed. The old man had assumed Elaine had died in the midst of the chaos and had kept the sword for himself. But now that he is nearing the end of his life, he wants to make sure that it finds its owner. Then he smiled, content that his handcrafted sword had reached Ree, causing this small kid to tightly hold it. "Mr. Blacksmith, you have my respect." Balthor also made sure Ree knew he was surrounded by people who loved him, and he aches that he has no recollections of that time. His sword is the one thing that connects him to his past, and he swears that no one will ever take it from him. That's really sad. He became an orphan with no memories of his family and is now being despised by everyone. Anyway, where is the Balthor guy? Today, Ree gathers his knights for a city patrol. Nothing major, just that they have received numerous complaints of minor accidents and petty crime recently, while Elaine happily glances at Ree as the sword looks great on him. They make their way to the streets, and the people begin to bow in respect for their duke, which she is relieved to see. Just like this little cutie pie who approaches Elaine and hands her a bag of cookies she made for the duke. I'm so glad not everyone hates him. Elaine asks the duke for permission to accept the present, and when he gives her the go-ahead, she excitedly goes for the cookies when she spots a man sprinting towards Ree with a bucket of water. Ree looks like he's used to this kind of treatment as he turns around, but he's taken aback when Elaine lunges ahead of him to catch the splash. Upon realizing the man's contempt for the duke, the other knights swiftly slam him to the ground. However, it seems that this man is also a victim of the incident in Sebeka. He shivers with rage as he tells them that his grandson died in that incident, and screams because he thinks it's unfair that Ree is alive, making Elaine feel terrible, but also furious because her family, Bella, was also a victim of the incident. Her shaking stops the second she feels Ree's coat placed on her, and his command to return to the quarters. She insists on staying, but then she begins sneezing, prompting Ree to push her to leave. Look at that height difference, cuties! Even after being tied up, this old man refuses to stop insulting Ree, prompting our guy to eventually speak up and tell him to shut up or his head will stop being attached to his neck. He then instructs one of his knights to toss the man into the dungeon, and while dragging him, he has the audacity to mention Ree's mother, reminding him that his very being is a crime against the innocents who perished that fateful night. Ree is acting strangely today. Usually he doesn't mind being mocked, but after witnessing Elaine's sacrifice earlier, he can't help but get extremely angry. In any case, when he walks away, he does admit that the old guy is right, but it doesn't alter the truth that he turned Killiard into a livable place. This gives him reason to be proud, as he believes he made an impact and that his life has never been a mistake. A male lead who endured relentless criticism throughout his life but refuses to let it define him? He really knows his worth, and I love it. Kazan rushes to check on Elaine after hearing what happened to her, but seeing how chill she appears after being splashed, he can't help but question her loyalty in protecting the Duke. He also reminds her of how dangerous the situation was, as the water could have been boiling or worse, poisoned. While Elaine understands him, she has also expected to be injured in her line of work, and she joyfully admits that she would feel more pain if the Duke was injured. Kazan is dumbfounded after that, since it seems like a low-key confession, though I'm sure Elaine doesn't mean it that way, but gosh, I hope that makes this guy realize that he has no place in Elaine's heart. Elaine immediately visits the Duke's office to inform him that she has already changed into dry clothes, but she is taken aback when Ree bluntly questions why she is so committed to protecting him. What else can she give as an excuse besides her position as his personal guard? But that didn't work, as Ree looks directly at her, knowing there's a deeper reason for this. Elaine is at a loss for words, so Ree simply retracts his previous statement and gets back to work, but not before he accidentally knocks over the ink bottle on his desk. When Elaine starts freaking out, Ree thinks she's being overly dramatic about the documents, but he is taken aback when she clarifies that she isn't worried about the papers at all, but rather about the ink on his hand. She then grabs his hand and wipes the ink away with her handkerchief. It is her habit to always bring a hanky because Ree used to be sick a lot when he was younger, but she never imagined being able to use her handkerchief on him now that he's an adult. After she's done, she smiles and tells him to wash his hands later to remove the remaining stains. He agrees, but thinks it's weird that Elaine treats him like a child. Yes, she still views you as a little boy. For now. Since then, their patrol has been smooth, and she enjoys watching him work really hard for his people and knights. That is, until today. After concluding their work that night, Ree and Elaine parted ways and said goodnight. However, when she walks to her room, a maid approaches her, distraught, and begs for help. The maid says she heard unusual noises and asks Elaine to come with her, which our girl is more than happy to do. Totally a trap. Really, who on this estate keeps hiring these maids? The two of them begin walking, and as they are about to turn a corner, Elaine is taken aback by a flying dagger directed at her. In an instant, she draws her sword and tells the maid to remain behind her, but the cunning maid chooses to let go of the light she's holding. Everything has gotten difficult to see, and Elaine is certain that there are several assassins ahead, but our girl is no ordinary knight, and she's able to fend off the flying daggers yet again. As she continues to assess, she finds that the assassins are using sword energy, indicating that they are at least swordmaster level, and that whoever hired them is quite powerful. Quickly realizing that Ree is their targeted victim, she eliminates every assassin with a single swoop, sparing only one knight to be interrogated. Like stealing candy from a baby. Afterwards, she hastily races over to see how Ree is doing, only to find the maid she had previously assisted attempting to stab Ree from behind. With Elaine's menacing gaze fixed on her, the maid is swiftly sent to sleep. They messed with the wrong personal guard. Ree turns around, covered in blood, indicating that several assassins attempted to assassinate him as well. Lowell then arrives, almost crying, to discover both the Duke and Elaine covered in blood, but he instantly sighs with relief when the two explain that they are perfectly fine. Duke is strong, but I'm enjoying how Elaine is such a powerful female lead. Lowell then gets serious and advises that they move Elaine's room next to Ree's. And before Ree has time to respond, our girl becomes all thrilled and volunteers to transfer instantly if Lowell wants. The two are really getting along until Ree butts in and says that they don't need to, but he can't win against these two who are giving him valid reasons, which makes Ree sigh and wonder why Elaine is so cool with it. With a broad grin that catches Ree off guard, Elaine rushes over to reassure him that she's more than happy to do so. But if Ree isn't on board, she'll be compelled to cancel the room transfer. Her adorable puppy eyes meet his, and our icy guy finally gives in and agrees, much to Elaine and Lowell's delight. I am convinced that Ree will fall in love first. Now that everything has been arranged, Ree walks to the dungeon where the maid and assassin Elaine has apprehended are being held. Taking off the assassin's gag, Ree demands to know who he's working for, but he merely grins and says that Ree should know who the mastermind is because not everyone is capable of recruiting a swordmaster like him. It appears that Ree already knows who's behind these attacks, and the only reason he's questioning the assassin is to see if he can exploit the mastermind's weakness. I am 100% sure that this is the Emperor, his evil Gramps. Even though Ree doesn't care whether the assassin takes his own life by biting off his tongue, he does offer him a deal. He'll let him go if he agrees to be his informant. Because of this, the assassin starts to think about his options and comes to the conclusion that, although Ree is likely to kill him, there is a slim chance that he is being sincere and will allow him to live. But the moment he accepts Ree's offer, the maid sitting beside him stabs him in the neck with her pointed heel, killing him on the spot. The maid's red eyes are burning with rage, believing that they should never hire anyone who only cares about money, and she smirks at Ree, claiming that her master expected traitors on his side, but that they have created an assassination unit composed solely of people who despise him. Just after saying that, she takes a drug that kills her immediately, as Ree sits there feeling terrible that even if he obtains concrete evidence regarding who is behind all of this, nothing would change. Everyone still hates him. Poor guy has lost everything and is loathed by everyone for something he did not do. The next day, Elaine is on her way to her new room, carrying everything she needs, when Cezanne approaches her, looking concerned after hearing what happened the night before. Our girl merely smiles and says she's totally fine. However, this guy looks miserable and admits that he has been worried about her safety since she became the Duke's personal guard. They are then stopped again by Sophia, who looks at her with hatred, while our girl here simply greets her with a cheerful good morning. What else can I say but kill them with kindness? Sophia then begins to insult Elaine, claiming that following the assassination last night, she is concerned that she will not do a good job as the Duke's personal guard during their annual training, which Elaine is unaware of, prompting Cezanne to explain that it is a 3-day training that takes place every year. Sophia doesn't stop there. She's now acting anxious that because the Duke would be busy training everyone, someone may fail to do her job, which irritates Cezanne because she's plainly implying that Elaine is lacking. Okay, my guy, I'll give you points for defending our girl. Sophia then pretends to be innocent, claiming that she did not mean it, and she's positive that Elaine will do a good job given that the Duke believes she's worthy. Elaine, on the other hand, is touched rather than annoyed, since she believes Sophia has tremendous regard for her. So she holds her hand and even thanks this brat. I know Elaine likes Sophia, given that she wishes to protect Ree. Regardless, she goes to the Duke's office to retrieve her new room key, but he hasn't arrived yet, so she supposes she'll just have to wait. After a while of waiting, though, her concern grows and she decides to check on Ree in his room, as he usually isn't this late. As she reaches his room, she sees the door ajar, which is making her nervous, and she fears something terrible happened. She flings open the door in a flash, but instead of an unsettling sight, cue the sha-la-la music, she discovers only Ree with no shirt on. Elaine is so embarrassed by what she has done that she feels driven to hurriedly leave. However, all of a sudden, she slips, and Ree swiftly catches her before she falls, which causes both of them to start blushing. At that moment, Elaine hastily bows and says that the only reason she came was because she was worried about him being late before exiting his room. The thought that Elaine is older than Ree is still stuck in my head, so I really have to remind myself that Elaine is mentally just 20 years old, so her reaction is valid. Anyway, she realizes now that she's outside that Ree is an adult who is of marriageable age, but she still can't imagine him getting married, likely because she views him as a child. After waiting, Ree comes out of his room in his uniform and gives her the key to her new room, while explaining that the reason he's late is because he overslept. Ree notices Elaine's surprise at hearing that someone like him can oversleep, which makes him laugh, while Elaine, who is witnessing Ree giggling for the first time, smiles back. Aw, I could totally picture him as a mushball softie if only he had a pleasant childhood. Ree goes on to say that he had a nightmare last night that left him sweating profusely, so he decided to take a bath, which caused him to be late. He seemed to have been having these nightmares for some time and has grown accustomed to them. As far as Elaine can tell, his nightmares must be connected to the events that took place in Sebeka. This is causing her concern, and she hopes that she could prevent him from dreaming about those events because she is familiar with how it feels to be in that situation. After a few days have passed, the Knights of Filrays, together with their commander, are now prepared to begin their training that will last for 3 days. Everyone is making their way into the mountains, and while Elaine shows no sign of fatigue, Cezanne is gasping for air from walking and carrying heavy loads for 3 hours straight. This causes Abel, one of the rookies along with Cezanne and Elaine, to make fun of the golden hair boy for being a little out of shape, which irritates Cezanne. But before he can react, Ree's voice pauses them all from walking. Ree gestures to the nearby mountain range and says they'll build a camp on the waterfall's cliff. After that, he explains that they will all have to run to the top and then gives everyone a grim expression as he says that the last 7 to make it will have to dive into the freezing water. Everyone starts running about like crazy because of all of this, and Elaine joins in, but she soon stops when she starts getting a chill. She feels someone's eyes on her and swiftly checks her surroundings, but she loses focus as Cezanne grabs her to tell her to start running too. The fun run eventually comes to an end, and the punishment? A plunge into the icy waters of the falls, falls squarely on the shoulders of the new recruits. The seasoned knights make fun of them, but they can't help but be impressed that Elaine and Cezanne, 2 new recruits, are fast enough to avoid punishment. I expect our girl to be fast, but not Cezanne. I'm really getting curious about him. He finds out Elaine beat him to the finish line and wants to know how she did, but she simply says she lost track. Elaine is sure she could have won first place if she had run at full speed, but she figures it's better to keep a low profile than have her strength questioned. Abel then approaches them, looking drenched and terribly cold, prompting Cezanne to poke fun at him. But you know what they say, don't tell them your next move. For Abel grabs Cezanne and throws him into the freezing water. Abel and Elaine can't help but laugh at Cezanne as this poor guy yells in anger. At the same time, Turthon, a gigantic monster towering over the woods, lets out a scream of its own. Ree promptly draws his sword and gives the command for everyone to get ready for battle. Elaine thinks this to be somewhat odd because Turthons are accustomed to living in warmer temperatures and not in this mountain location, which is cold. However, as Ree rushes forward to launch an attack, they are halted by a man with blonde hair who appears to be timid and suggests that they refrain from killing the monster because doing so will get him into trouble. You're cute, but who cares if you get into trouble when you're putting everyone else in danger? This guy calmly stands at the monster's feet, prompting Ree to yell at him to get away as soon as possible, or he'll be seriously wounded. However, the blonde guy screams that he will not move, and before he can say anything further, Turthon's fist knocks him to the ground. Elaine quickly rushes to the Duke's side to see if he's okay when they realize the blonde guy is still alive and has defended himself from the attack with a magic circle. He timidly tells them that he is not a suspicious person, but rather a normal sorcerer. However, can you really call him an average sorcerer when, with the snap of his finger, the Turthon is covered with magical inscriptions and vanishes? He breathes in relief and tries to excuse himself, but he is unable to do so as Ree thrusts his sword into his neck and demands to know where he sent the Turthon. This causes him to explain that he teleported the monster to his laboratory, and he reveals that he's a sorcerer who lives alone in these woods conducting research, prompting Ree to give him a serious look and inquire whether he's a dark sorcerer. The sorcerer frantically claims he's not and begins fumbling through his bag to provide them proof, while our guy looks cute as he makes sure not to blink so he doesn't miss anything. Just then, the sorcerer shows them his badge, which confirms that he studied at the Halon Royal Magic Academy, and says that what he has is a special badge because it is only awarded to those who graduated at the top of their class. He points to the badge again to show them that even his name, Nathan, is etched on it, indicating that he's not a dark sorcerer of any kind. However, Ree, our very meticulous guy, refuses to accept him until he confirms his identification with the Academy, which is starting to aggravate Nathan, so he resolves to simply run away and teleport. Doesn't look like a bad guy to me. As evening falls, everyone gathers in a circle to barbecue the meats in the center. Ree, the commander, delivers a speech to raise his knights' morale and explains that the aim of their annual training is to help new recruits settle in. This is refreshing. Leaders don't always take this step for their newbies. Following that, Ree raises a toast and everyone starts drinking and eating. As Ree reaches for some meat, Elaine taps him on the side, wanting him to take the bowl of meat she's already prepared for him. She carefully selects the easier-to-eat parts and immediately stretches her hand to feed him like a child. Being treated this way in front of the knights irritates Ree, but Elaine appears so innocent as she insists she only wants him to enjoy the feast. Elaine's naivety makes Ree sigh, and the more she insists on him eating, the more annoyed Ree becomes, so she resolves to eat it all herself. In any case, as she eats peacefully, she begins to recall the sorcerer earlier, and she is familiar with the school Nathan mentioned because it was already well known as a famous school 20 years ago. From what she recalls, the majority of the sorcerers serving the kingdom are graduates of that academy, leading her to believe Nathan was aware of the Sebeka tragedy. She then touches her pocket where she has kept the symbol she drew, hoping that this guy will provide her some leads. I really can't wait for the revenge scenes! That night, Elaine plans to sneak out before the night watch arrives, unaware that Sophia is closely observing her and is very curious about where she is going. So nosy! Elaine runs swiftly, following the traces of teleportation magic left by Nathan, confident that it will lead her to him. But she stops, seeing a steep cliff ahead of her. She grabs a few stones and tosses them at the cliff, and voila! It seems to be an illusion spell, so she continues walking and soon finds herself inside a cave. Meanwhile, Nathan is analyzing his experiments, but as his head throbs, he closes his eyes, wishing that if he could just get a Saturn, it might help him with his work. Just then, Elaine greets him unexpectedly, shocking this poor guy. Nathan then recognizes her uniform, which scares him, and he wonders how she managed to sneak into his laboratory, prompting her to clarify that she means no harm and is actually there to ask for a private investigation. However, Nathan quickly turns her down because he's busy with his research on the Turthon they encountered earlier. He even informs her that he's missing one important element, which Elaine knows is the Saturn, since she heard him mumbling about it. She then asks if he would be willing to consider her request if she can supply him with Saturn. Saturn is a rare flower that only blooms after a fairy shower, and although no one is selling it, Elaine knows where it grows, which surprises Nathan. Elaine then stresses to close their deal, leading Nathan to agree. After he promises to keep everything secret, Elaine shows him the image of the symbol she wants him to investigate. After a while, Elaine walks out of the cave, surprised to see Sophia, whose smile is tinged with suspicion. Sophia demands to know what Elaine was doing inside the cave, and as Elaine remains silent, grasping how to manage the situation, Sophia's curiosity intensifies, feeling that there must be something hidden inside. Sophia then decides to investigate for herself, but as she steps forward, Nathan's magical barrier stops her in her tracks. Sophia is getting really frustrated and starts to wonder what Elaine might be hiding, prompting Elaine to just tell her that she cannot talk about it since it's a task given to her by the Duke, and she has to keep it confidential as his personal guard. Of course, it was all lies. Elaine figures Sophia will not push it because of her loyalty to the Duke. Still, Sophia is irritated by Elaine's attitude, acting all superior just because she's Ree's personal guard. Sophia despises how Elaine takes on the role of the Duke's caretaker during their dinner, and she angrily tells Elaine that she's unaware of how her behavior makes the Duke uncomfortable, before leaving our girl stunned. 2 days later, as Ree is about to lift his bag, Elaine notices it and quickly offers to carry it for him. However, recalling Sophia's words, she hesitates and asks Ree directly if she has been annoying to him. Ree pauses, recalling the times Elaine had been kind to him, before assuring her that her presence doesn't make him uncomfortable, and that brings her so much relief. The way she's golden retriever coated and he's black cat coated? Cuties. After finishing their 3-day annual training, the Knights of Filrays returned to Killiard, and 2 days later they received a particular letter. The letter is from the Count of Valendor, who is requesting an investigation into a series of disappearances occurring in his county. Upon their arrival, the Count greets them warmly, but Ree finds it outrageous that the Count took 2 weeks to seek help after the initial disappearances, and only took action because his cat is missing. When the Count inquires about finding his cat Beatrice, Ree stresses that their main priority should be on locating the missing individuals, which causes the Count to cry out in despair. Later on, Ree hears from his knight that the villagers are talking about a farmer who was plowing his field near the East Woods. Apparently, he just stopped, almost like he was in a trance, and then walked into the woods, disappearing without a trace. Ree then thinks they might be up against a monster that uses hypnosis to control its victims, so he tells his team to stay alert. Ree decides to split the group into 3 teams. He and Elaine will search by the lake, while the others will divide into 2 separate groups. He reminds them that if anyone ends up in danger, firing the flare gun will signal the others to rush to their rescue. Ree and Elaine begin their search together when they sense a sudden shift in the air. They then suddenly hear a voice singing, which raises their alarm, causing Ree to quickly warn Elaine to shield her ears with mana. In an instant, they find themselves surrounded by Lamias, half-serpent monsters capable of hypnotizing their victims with their singing. They then switch to fighting mode, and with flawless moves, they both finish off the monsters. But they pause when a red flare shoots into the air. Just minutes earlier, Sazon's group encountered the boss, a massive top-level serpent known as Lykios. With only 3 of them, they chose to retreat and warn the others. But before they could escape, Lamias appeared, cornering them. Realizing the danger they were in, Sazon fired the flare. By the time Ree and Elaine reach the scene, Sazon is already on the ground, bloodied but conscious enough to report what happened. A team from the cottage has already arrived to assist, but they too have sustained serious injuries. On a more hopeful note, the knights tasked with searching the cottage managed to locate and evacuate several survivors. Lykios can regenerate endlessly unless its core is destroyed. The problem is that no one knows where the core is hidden. Ree tells Elaine to stay back and tend to the injured while he goes on the offensive. Then he leaps forward, moving so fast that his strikes blur together, cutting into the monster repeatedly before its regeneration can fully catch up. When he finally discovers the core, the monster goes berserk and charges towards Sophia and 2 other knights. Elaine immediately dashes in to protect them, and at the same time, Ree also springs into action, racing to intercept the attack and shield them from the monster's strike. Elaine manages to land a critical blow on Lykios just in time, stopping it before it can swallow Ree whole. The monster reels back and starts crawling away, slowly regenerating as it retreats. Elaine thinks about chasing after it to finish the fight, but she stops when she notices Ree has collapsed on the ground. She rushes to him and examines his condition, finding a deep wound on his arm, likely caused by the monster's fangs. It becomes clear he's been poisoned by its venom. Her concern turns to panic when Ree suddenly coughs up blood, and the sight brings back a painful memory of Belle in the same condition. Elaine breaks down in tears, clutching him and begging him not to leave her too. They return to the Count's estate, where the doctor advises them they will require an anti-venom, which may take at least 10 days to obtain. Elaine pushes the doctor to find another solution, and there is one. He can make it himself, but he needs two vital ingredients: freshly harvested vagum herb and the heart of a Lykios. Sophia urges them to go after the monster right away, but it seems they can't because the majority of the knights are hurt, thus they're marching to their death. Elaine then announces that in the meantime, she will acquire vagum herb because she knows where it is and is not wounded, which everyone agrees with. Elaine grabs Rhee's hand, swearing to acquire it in time, and of course, she intends to defeat the Lykios monster and take its heart. Sophia goes to check on Rhee, hoping he's stable, but she's horrified to see him in bed coughing up blood. He's in critical condition, and she knows even a doctor won't be able to help without the antidote. With Elaine already gone to retrieve the vagum herb, Sophia realizes there's only one thing left they can still do: obtain Lykios' heart. It's not something she can do alone, but guilt pushes her forward because Rhee has already risked his life for her twice already. Oh? So is that the reason she started liking him? The bratty but brave girl still goes off alone into the forest, determined to help save Rhee. But when she finally finds Lykios, she's completely horrified, almost vomiting at the sight of it devouring Lamius, its own kind. Her hand trembles, fear nearly taking over, but she forces herself to continue with her plan. Holding on to her resolve, she launches her attack and manages to strike the monster's core. She manages to cut into Lykios, exposing its core, but before she can react, the monster's tail strikes her hard, sending her crashing to the ground. Heavily injured, Sophia lies there, accepting what she believes is her end. She clutches the handkerchief the Duke gave her, closes her eyes, and bitterly calls herself pathetic. Then, in an instant, everything changes. The monster's head is cut down, and its core is destroyed by our baddie girl Elaine. She slay, like, literally. Sophia can hardly believe it. Elaine has effortlessly beheaded Lykios in a single strike and lands gracefully, still holding the monster's bloodied heart. It seems Elaine doesn't realize that Sophia is there, and she's taken aback to see her hurt. However, Sophia quickly stops her, saying they don't have time for greetings right now since Rhee's condition has gotten worse. She urges Elaine to go immediately and says she'll follow behind. Instead, Elaine surprises her by offering to carry her on her back. I smell besties! Meanwhile, Rhee is pulled back into a painful childhood memory. Kids mocking him, pushing him into a fountain, calling him a monster. They point and laugh, labeling him the witch's son, while fireworks explode overhead, turning what should have been a joyful moment into something haunting. When Balthor saw Rhee drenched, he immediately grew furious, demanding to know who had done this to him. But Rhee only called him strange, because why look at him with pity when there was nothing pitiful about a monster soaked in water? Balthor asks who had put such thoughts in his head, but Rhee just tells what's the truth. His mother was a witch who had once mercilessly burned thousands of innocent lives. Before he could say more, Balthor pulled him into a firm, comforting hug, telling him that even if she was his mother, that didn't make him a monster. Those words hit Rhee hard. All he ever wanted was reassurance that it was okay for him to exist. Everyone else called him a monster and mocked him, but Balthor always stayed by his side, protecting him and looking more hurt than he was whenever Rhee got injured. Balthor was his only ally, his light, until one day the news arrived that Balthor had gone missing. Before Balthor left, he assured Rhee that he would return after investigating something. Even so, the boy couldn't shake the uneasy feeling in his chest. And as it turned out, his instincts were right. Not long after Balthor's disappearance, someone far less welcome appeared. Michael de Phelon, the Crown Prince. Michael, a cruel and arrogant child, summoned Rhee to punish him for not greeting him properly in the hallway and to assert his status. Rhee apologized quickly, hoping to avoid trouble, but it didn't matter. Michael scoffed and struck him across the face, demanding he try again. Trembling, Rhee complied, but each attempt only earned him another slap. Again and again. By the time Michael grew bored, Rhee's face was swollen and his lip was bleeding. As if that wasn't enough, the prince kicked him down, forcing him to his knees while ordering him to know his place and keep his head lowered. This kid is beyond spoiled. This is straight up disgusting. Karma will get you, just wait. Anyway, That was the moment Ree realized that without Balthor, he was still just a helpless child. So he changed. By the time he turned 14, he had finally gained the strength to protect himself. I love characters who turn their trauma to strength like Ree. When Ree began governing Killiard, assassination attempts started happening frequently, so he chose to appoint his very first personal guard. Ron was bright, almost overflowing with enthusiasm in a way that could be exhausting on the worst days, but Ree trusted him to be by his side. However, that decision turned into tragedy. The Sunshine Boy passed away in an explosion. It didn't end there. The next personal guards also kept losing their lives, whether by suffocation, drowning, poisoning, or even by taking their own lives. Ree started to believe it was a curse. Fearing more innocent lives would be lost, he stopped appointing any new guards altogether until Elaine eventually appeared. Ree got curious when he received the sword and asked Balthor about the woman who commissioned it. Balthor told him it was Elaine, an old friend of his mother. He described her as having pale green eyes, long silver hair, and a bright, cheerful personality. He also mentioned that Elaine was always especially happy when she was with Ree, and he remembered her saying she wanted Ree to be happy and promised to always protect him. Right after those memories surfaced, Ree woke up to find Elaine crying for him. Ree wonders if he's still dreaming because if this is Elaine from his past, it makes sense why she would have such a relieved expression. But no, she is Dame Elaine, his personal knight. Elaine explains that he had been in critical condition due to Lykios' venom, and that he had only just woken up after receiving the anti-venom. A little shyly, she admits she had been the one taking care of him because she couldn't bring herself to rest easily. That earns her a genuine smile from Ree as he thanks her. She seems taken aback for a moment, then returns the smile and says it was her honor. I wonder if that smile reminded her of Bella. Meanwhile, Sophia, also resting due to her injuries, couldn't help but feel confused about Elaine's overwhelming power, far beyond even the Duke's. Elaine soon appears and informs her that the anti-venom had worked, and that Ree had fallen back asleep. Her expression then turns serious as she asks Sophia to keep the truth about her strength a secret. Elaine really doesn't want any unnecessary attention, especially since her power already surpasses Ree, the mightiest knight. If her identity became widely known, there was a high risk that people who once knew her might come looking and start questioning why she still looks the same as she did 20 years ago. To Elaine's surprise, Sophia swears on her honor as a knight that she won't tell anyone as a way of repaying Elaine for saving her life. She also apologized for her earlier rudeness, admitting she had judged Elaine without knowing her true abilities. Sophia also confesses that she felt a bit of jealousy, especially since Elaine became the Duke's personal guard, a position she herself had long hoped to earn and gain his recognition for. Sophia was the eldest daughter of a fallen count. 5 years ago, monsters attacked her village, wiping out her entire family. When Ree saved her, she got so furious at him. At that time, she believed she had lost everything and even thought death would have been easier than surviving. Ree understood her pain, but told her that surviving meant carrying that weight. His words only made her angrier, as she felt he was speaking too lightly about something he had never lived through. That was when Ree revealed the truth about himself as well. He had lost everything too. No family, no home. There was a time when all he could do was cry. But he had come to understand that those who had already lost everything are not so easily broken. He told her firmly that she wouldn't be broken either. And instead of letting despair define her, he urged her to stand up because she still had an entire life ahead of her. For someone with such a painful past, Ree really has a surprisingly grounded and healthy mindset. It's honestly refreshing to see in a male lead. Hearing Sophia's story moves Elaine enough that she gently hugs her. Just then, Cezanne arrives and curiously asks how Elaine managed to defeat the Lykios. Elaine panics a little, realizing they hadn't agreed on what to tell others. But to her surprise, Sophia calmly answers that Elaine defeated the monster on her own. She adds that she did fight as well, but ultimately felt she only slowed Elaine down. Later, Elaine goes to see Ree with her homemade bear stew. Before taking a bite, Ree asks her directly if it's true she defeated the Lykios alone. She quickly denies it, saying Sophia was there to help too. However, Ree then unexpectedly asks what she was doing before she became a knight, catching her completely off guard. Elaine starts internally panicking as Ree starts to get curious about her identity. Fortunately, he follows up gently, asking if she's uncomfortable talking about her past. When she admits she is, he immediately drops the topic and simply compliments the stew instead. She relaxed a little at that and mentioned she had learned to cook from someone when she was a child. Ri naturally assumes it was her parents, but gets surprised to hear that she had actually been abandoned. She had only survived because someone with a kind heart took her in. Softly, Ri remarks that whoever had raised her must have truly cherished her. That simple comment triggered something in Elaine's memory. Flashes of a younger time, of her and Bella happily cooking together. This makes her start tearing up because if she could tell him the truth right now, she would have said that the person he was just praising was his own mother. After Ri's recovery, they carried out additional searches. However, aside from the survivors they had already found on the first day, they discovered no more, only the remains of the victims. On a slightly brighter note, Ri and Elaine did manage to find the Count's beloved cat, the very one he had been so desperate to locate. The Count feels so happy hugging his cat that he decides to throw a banquet to celebrate. All the knights are having a wonderful time. And look at this! Sophia, our new bestie, has prepared a whole plate of food just for Elaine. It's great to see the change. Cezanne is a bit concerned that Sophia might have added something to the meat, especially since she used to pick a fight with Elaine. This led to some arguing between the two, and Elaine quietly slipped away when she noticed Ri heading out. Elaine, acting like a clingy pup, asks if she can accompany Ri, and seeing how excited she is, he lets her tag along. As they walk, they notice flowers beginning to bloom. Ri mentions that Killiard holds a butterfly flower festival every March, which makes Elaine quietly think about acquiring the Satyrin before then. She then requests a 1-week leave, and he agrees. Elaine gently asks if he likes fireworks, but the question brings back unpleasant memories of bullies from his childhood. Before he can fully respond, the clock strikes midnight, prompting her to use her magic to create mini soft fireworks in the sky, and then hand him a gift. Ri realizes he had completely forgotten his own birthday amid all the chaos. Flustered, he thanks her sincerely, admitting the gift means a lot to him. Still puzzled, he asks why she always treats him with such kindness. Elaine simply smiles brightly and says she only wishes for his happiness. As the witch's child, Ri is used to hearing people wish for his suffering, yet Elaine is here wishing for his happiness instead. He thinks that maybe it was the bright spark of the fireworks earlier, shining so vividly that it overpowered his bad memories of the past. With a small smile, he says that fireworks aren't that bad after all. No, Elaine has no idea she's slowly healing him without even realizing it. After a few days, they returned to Killiard, where both Elaine and Sophia were honored for their bravery. Elaine, in particular, was highly regarded within the knighthood for her significant contributions. Right now, Ri is buried in paperwork without Elaine around to help him. She won't be back for another 4 days, and by the time she returns, the festival will already be starting. Because of this, Lowell encourages Ri to go to the festival with her. Lowell shares that Elaine is planning to ask him to go to the festival together once she returns, which kinda surprises Ri. Their chat is cut short when Hilaire, the pretty and cold-looking Lady Knight, enters the office to report her return from the expedition. She informs the Duke that she has successfully cleared out the monsters, but once again she was unable to locate Balthor. Ri tells her not to apologize, saying that more than anyone, he knows she wants to find Balthor even more than he does. It has already been a decade since Balthor's disappearance. Before he left, he told Ri that if he failed to return, his daughter Hilaire will protect him in his place. Meanwhile, Elaine successfully plucks the Satyrin flower from the mountain and lands effortlessly as if it were nothing. Then a small smile forms on her face as she looks forward to heading back. When Elaine returns to Killiard that day, she is surprised to see unfamiliar knights in their uniforms. Suddenly, Sophia taps her on the shoulder, expressing her happiness to see Elaine again. Seizing the opportunity, Elaine asks her about the knights, which makes Sophia explain that the knights before them are members of the knighthood who have recently returned from a long mission. At that moment, one knight inquires if Elaine is a new recruit, as he has never seen her before, prompting Elaine to greet them and formally introduce herself as the Duke's personal guard, provoking a reaction from the knights. The knights are in disbelief that the Duke has appointed a complete newcomer as his personal guard, prompting Sophia to flinch and quickly intervene, urging them not to judge Elaine too hastily. She then shares that Elaine defeated the terrifying Lykios on her own, which surprises them even more. Just then, Kazan excitedly calls out Elaine's name while cheerfully waving, clearly glad to see her again. He then mentions that if he only had known she would be arriving earlier, he would have informed the Duke, leaving Elaine confused. Elaine rushes to Ree's office to let him know she has arrived. He then quickly informs her that Lowell has already told him she wants to attend the festival with him, but Ree can't finish his sentence because Elaine's reaction stops him. She even gets him to promise that he won't go back on his word before she leaves his office. On the day of the festival, Ree waits for Elaine, who quickly apologizes for being a bit late and getting ready for the occasion. She then asks if her dress looks awkward, prompting Ree to assure her that it suits her well before turning away, which makes Elaine blush. They then both arrive at the festival, and Elaine is particularly excited by the food stalls that fill the air with mouth-watering aromas, instantly capturing her attention. Ree, not having a specific dish in mind, encourages her to choose something she likes. After some time, Elaine returns with a generous amount of food, leaving Ree to wonder if she can manage to eat it all. She excitedly gives him a stick of barbecue, which he quickly accepts, and they both enjoy eating it. Suddenly, Elaine spots something that she thinks might be fun and suggests that they take a look after they are done eating. Curious, Ree turns around and sees a shooting booth across from them. The booth owner greets them warmly, calling them a young couple, which makes them feel a bit awkward. He encourages them to try the game, emphasizing that the grand prize is a large teddy bear, which thrills Elaine. Seeing her reaction, Ree assumes that she likes the plushie, so he decides to pay for a round for the two of them, thinking it would be a fun experience. He then suggests that they try winning the prize together. After they both throw their darts, the booth owner looks completely shocked because every single dart hits the bullseye. He awards Elaine the large teddy bear as their prize, but Ree is puzzled when Elaine cheerfully hands the bear over to him. Ree pushes the bear back to Elaine, insisting that it belongs to her, but she then pushes it back to him, wanting him to have it instead. Oh, the poor plushie! The back and forth annoys the dart owner, prompting him to make them leave his area. Elaine then suggests playing rock, paper, scissors, with the winner getting to give the teddy bear to the loser, and Ree readily agrees. However, Elaine loses the game, resulting in her becoming the owner of the teddy bear despite her insisting that he should keep it instead. Cute how she's trying to give him the princess treatment. To change her mood, Ree reminds her that she has already given him something, and as he gently touches the brooch on his chest, he tells her that it is more than enough for him. He then invites her to explore a different place, and to her surprise, he leads her to a marigold field. Its beauty is so overwhelming that it makes her wish everyone could experience the view with her. As she gazes at the field, she imagines Bella smiling alongside Lloyd, and of course, Acefell. Reflecting on Acefell, she struggles to accept the reality of his death that day, convinced he would have survived due to his demon nature. At one point, she believes that Acefell was the one who took care of the young Ree after the incident. However, it appears that Ree was unaware of his existence, prompting her to wonder where Acefell could have gone. What if Balthor is Acefell? After a while, they leave the place, only to be surprised to see someone urgently looking for him, which prompts him to intervene. Ree quickly recognizes the person as the butler from the Rister household, who delivers the shocking news that Lady Hilliard's younger brother, Edwin, has been kidnapped. Just yesterday, Edwin went out with his personal guard, Jace, to buy groceries. He wanted to prepare a hearty meal for his sister, especially since it marked the first anniversary of him becoming the Count. However, their peaceful outing suddenly turned dangerous when a group of assassins surrounded them. Although Jace was skilled and strong, he was caught off guard when the attackers electrocuted him. The assassins then threatened Edwin, warning that they would toast Jace alive if he refused to cooperate. Left with no other choice, the little boy reluctantly followed them. Before leaving, the assassins tossed a letter toward the injured Jace and ordered him to deliver it to Hilaire. The message demanded that she arrive at their designated location with Rhys, otherwise, her brother would be executed. The butler informs Rhys that Hilaire is secretly preparing to rescue Edwin on her own, refusing to involve him because she fears it would put him in danger. However, when the butler mentions that the letter bears the name of the Galoid mercenaries, Rhys immediately recognizes them as the same bandit group they defeated 2 years ago. That realization makes it clear that this is a personal grudge against him. Desperate, the butler begs for Rhys' help, saying that they already lost Count Balthor, and if they lose Edwin as well, it will surely mean the downfall of the Rister estate. Hilaire is shocked when Rhys arrives at the Rister Manor, and the moment he says that he has already been informed about what happened, she immediately turns to glare at the poor butler. She urges the Duke not to involve himself, but Ri explains that the assassins will surely kill Edwin on the spot if he does not show up. Even so, Hillier stubbornly refuses because she still carries the promise she made to her father that she will protect him no matter what. Elaine silently listens as the two continue to argue, but deep inside, she still cannot believe that Hillier is actually Balthor's daughter. They were not particularly close in the past, but she remembers him as the commander of the Royal Knights and one of Lloyd's close friends. Learning that he disappeared while taking care of Ri leaves a heavy feeling in her chest. In the end, Hillier says that she will only allow Ri to join the rescue operation if he promises that the moment he finds himself in danger, he will immediately escape, even if it means abandoning both her and her brother. Ri agrees to her condition without hesitation, while Elaine steps forward and assures Hillier that she will personally protect the Duke. Meanwhile, Edwin sits tightly bound to a chair with ropes as he listens to the kidnapper rant about his hatred for Rhys. The man claims that Rhys is the son of the witch responsible for the Sebeka tragedy, the very disaster that cost him his father and left his entire body covered in burns. He explains that he barely survives afterwards by forming a mercenary group, only for Ri to destroy that as well. To him, both the mother and the son have ruined his life, and that is why his hatred runs so deep. After pouring out all his grievances, the kidnapper asks Edwin what he thinks about his story. However, instead of sympathy, all he receives is a cold glare and a blunt response from the boy. "How is that my business?" Baby boy seems to forget that he is literally in a life-and-death situation. Edwin's cold response instantly enrages the kidnapper. Furious, the man violently smacks him across the face before pulling out a dagger and pressing its sharp tip dangerously close to Edwin's eye. Thankfully, one of the kidnapper's subordinates suddenly arrives to report that there is an infiltration. Because of the interruption, Edwin luckily gets to keep his eyes as the kidnappers immediately leave the room. Meanwhile, the rescue team splits into two groups. Ri and Elaine head to the western building while Hillier and her men search the central prison. The two move quickly, and when Ri and Elaine hear several men talking nearby, they immediately follow the voices. However, to their surprise, they end up at a dead end. It's a trap! Hillier's group also finds nothing at first, forcing them to spread out and check different areas. When Hillier enters one of the buildings alone, she is immediately met with a blade aimed at her. It is the bandit boss. He looks at her and scoffs, clearly disappointed that it is not the Duke who has appeared. Hillier, unfazed, is just as sharp in return and demands to know where her brother is. She raises her sword and presses it against his neck, but the boss activates a hidden magical tool, electrocuting her blade. The shock backfires into Hillier's arm, burning it as she staggers in pain. Back with Ri and Elaine, they manage to take down the men who try to trap them. Just when things briefly settle, a loud siren echoes through the area, which means Hillier's group has been discovered. Ri immediately decides to act as a decoy and tells Elaine to continue searching for Edwin. Of course, she refuses outright. She insists on being the one to draw attention instead, but Ri shuts it down, saying she isn't their target. He confidently adds that he isn't someone easily defeated, so she doesn't need to worry about him. They part ways. Elaine's still strongly against it, but she knows there's no time to argue, so she clocks in and focuses. She sharpens her senses and catches a faint sound coming from a wall. Leaning closer, she hears someone calling for help. Realizing it's a hidden mechanism, she presses against the bricks. With a solid push, the wall gives way, revealing a concealed passage behind it. The kidnappers are too slow to catch Ri when he stumbles upon a strange building that isn't marked on any map. Suspecting it might be where Edwin is being held, he decides to investigate. The moment he steps inside, he hears desperate screams echoing through the halls. Following the sound, he is horrified to witness the boss brutally executing 3 imprisoned men. Ri snaps and demands to know what the heck he's doing. The boss only smirks and casually explains that he's been torturing and killing men who resemble Ri. He adds, with twisted amusement, that since Ri has been so difficult to capture, he decided to entertain himself by eliminating his lookalikes instead. For a minor, nameless villain, this guy is crazy sick. Ri looks around and realizes every prisoner shares his traits. Black hair, fair skin, even purple eyes. Rage builds in him as he sees the cruelty for what it is, and he prepares to make this monster pay. However, before Ri can even unsheath his sword, the boss reveals a bomb trigger linked directly to Edwin. He warns that if Ri makes a single wrong move, the boy dies. To prove he is serious, he orders Ree to drop his weapon and place his hands behind his back. Ree complies, and the moment he does, he is cuffed and forced down onto his knees. The boss steps closer, clearly enjoying the shift in power, ready to finally get his revenge. Wait till his knight in shining armor appears, you lunatic! Speaking of the baddie queen, Elaine is about to cut the ropes binding Edwin when he suddenly screams for her to stop. He explains that there's a bomb strapped to his neck. Elaine quickly inspects it and realizes that forcing it open will trigger the explosion. But this is Elaine. Without hesitation, she activates her power, and ta-da! The device safely shuts down. Edwin freezes in shock and confusion as the bomb is removed. What she actually does is extract the mana powering the bomb without ever touching it. It's an ability far beyond ordinary mages or sword masters, something only possible because of the power Bella once gave her. I miss Bella. Now back to Reese, still forced to kneel, he suddenly starts laughing at the boss. He mocks him, calling him pathetic for killing innocent men just because he's too afraid to confront him head-on. Enraged, the boss slaps him hard across the face and immediately presses the detonator, but nothing happens. Ree reveals that the bomb has already been disabled, and the count has been safely retrieved. When the boss demands to know how he found out, Ree smilingly shares that his brooch is actually a communication device. Ree then effortlessly breaks free from the handcuffs, grabs the boss, and flips him to the ground. As the remaining lackeys rush in, Hillier and the knights arrive just in time, swiftly taking them down one by one with precise dagger attacks. After dragging criminals out, Ree gets worried about Hillier's arm, and is glad to learn that it is not life-threatening. I just realized that these two are childhood friends. They act far too formal around one another. Soon after, Elaine and Edwin arrive. Hillier immediately pulls her younger brother into a tight embrace, apologizing for arriving late. But Edwin simply smiles brightly, reassuring her without a hint of blame. With the situation finally resolved, they all make their way back to the Rister estate together. Elaine is clearly enraged that they managed to leave a bruise on Ree's handsome face, insisting she's going to treat it properly so it doesn't leave a mark. She pushes her way in to apply the medicine herself while he pulls away, practically behaving like a cat trying to escape her hands. Ree eventually gives in, but as she leans in close, he finds himself awkwardly unsure where to look, caught off guard by how near her face is. The Rister siblings enter the room to thank them for their help. Hillier admits she was surprised when she learned that Ree had appointed Elaine as his personal guard, but after what happened last night, she now understands why. She then extends her hand, saying she looks forward to continuing to work with Elaine. Elaine beams and shakes her hand warmly in return. However, unknown to them, a hooded figure watches from high up in a nearby tree, silently observing everything. Balthor? A spy? Or perhaps Acefell? A few days after returning to Killiard, Elaine receives a letter from Nathan saying he has finished his investigation and will be visiting her soon to personally hand over his findings. Shortly after, Ree enters her room a bit shyly and presents her with a pair of gloves as a gift. Elaine is visibly surprised and genuinely happy. He explains that he wants to show his gratitude, especially for her help in rescuing Edwin. He admits that if he had failed, he doesn't think he would have been able to forgive himself. He also says he wouldn't have been able to face Balthor again if he had let his son die. After that, she goes out to meet Nathan. As promised, she hands over the Satyran, and in return, Nathan gives her all the documents he has managed to gather from his investigation. He explains that he has examined every spell he could find and included anything that matches her description. Elaine begins reviewing them one by one. As she sorts through the pages, a small note slips out. When she picks it up, her expression changes instantly. She recognizes the mark she's been searching for. Nathan is horrified and asks if that is truly the spell she's looking for. He informs her that it hasn't been used since ancient times, as it is far too dangerous and capable of plunging an entire land into chaos. Nathan becomes serious and asks who Elaine really is, since barely any wizard should know about such an ancient spell, but Elaine refuses to answer. Instead, she reassures him that if he is worried she might misuse it, he doesn't need to be. She doesn't even have the ability to do so. Fortunately, Nathan seems to accept her words and begins explaining further. The ancient spell allows its user to take full control of another person's mind. That explanation immediately clicks for Elaine, making Bella's blackened eyes during that incident finally make sense. Elaine seethes in silence, anger boiling at whoever twisted Bella into harming Sebeka and its people. Trying to steady herself, she listens as Nathan continues, revealing that the spell's marking requires the blood of a demonic dragon. At that, Elaine looks up and calmly asks him to take on another request for her. 20 years ago, an imperial order was issued to exterminate the land's demonic dragons. The royal family took part in that mission. The couple Bella and Lloyd, the second prince, the third prince, and Hasidium, the emperor at the time, whom Elaine does not yet realize is the true mastermind behind everything. From what she knows, Hasidium and Lloyd both disappeared after the Sebeka tragedy. Chelseo, the second prince, eventually inherited the throne, while the third prince, now a duke, has always held a strong disdain for Bella. Elaine still has no clear idea who orchestrated it all. To find a lead, she realizes she needs something crucial: a complete list of everyone who participated in that mission. Today, Rhys summons Kazan and Elaine to his office to inform them that he is currently negotiating a deal with House Lakers, as they require high-quality lumber for their repair projects. He explains that he has already contacted the Marquis, but the man agreed to the deal on the condition that Kazan accompany him. Knowing that Kazan managed to join the Knights through the Marquis's support, Rhys asks if he has any idea why the Marquis suddenly wishes to see him again. When Kazan hesitates to answer, Rhys chooses not to press the matter further. Instead, he simply requests that Kazan come with him for the meeting, and Kazan agrees. When they arrive, Marquis Lakers warmly welcomes them, his attention lingering especially on Kazan. Kazan, however, appears visibly anxious, nearly murmuring the word father before quickly correcting himself and formally addressing him as Lord Lakers. House Lakers is a noble family stationed in the kingdom's northernmost region. For generations, they have served as the guardians of the land, once known as the resting place of the demonic dragon. They head inside, and the Marquis personally begins the negotiation, which leaves Rhys slightly confused since, from what he knows, the Marquis's daughter usually handles such matters. The Marquis simply explains that his daughter has not been feeling well lately, prompting them to proceed with the discussion without her. Julie, the Marquis's daughter, once held significant influence in high society, but she suddenly stopped making public appearances a year ago. A servant arrives to serve them tea, but suddenly trips, prompting Elaine to quickly catch both her and the tray. Spidey sense! Even so, some tea spills onto Elaine's clothes, so the maid offers to escort her to change. While walking through the hallway, Elaine simply asks for a dry towel instead and tells the maid to return to work. Once alone, Elaine takes the chance to look around. Since House Lakers guard the north, everyone who enters the northern mountains must report to them, meaning they likely have records of the group that slayed the dragon 20 years ago. But before she can search further, she suddenly bumps into a hot-headed man with golden hair. This must be the crown prince who bullied Ray! He rudely calls Elaine a peasant, so she quickly apologizes and tries to walk past him. However, the man grabs her shoulder and demands a proper apology. Nah, Elaine fires back that he should apologize too, since she's not the only one at fault. Just then, Rhys arrives and addresses the man as Your Highness, confirming that this trash is indeed Michael, the Crown Prince. Michael insults Rhys by calling him a lowly evil pedigree, instantly triggering Elaine's anger. But before things can escalate, the Marquis appears. The old noble clearly isn't pleased by Michael's unannounced visit, and coldly states that he cannot entertain him at the moment due to his prior engagement with Rhys. That immediately bruises Michael's pride, and in an authoritative tone, he orders the Marquis to bring Julie out. He says he's tired of hearing excuses about Julie being too ill to discuss their engagement, reminding the Marquis that this is already his 5th visit in the past 3 months. At this point, he openly doubts whether Julie is even sick at all. The Marquis then drops the polite act entirely and bluntly states that Julie simply does not want to get engaged to him. Michael asks for honesty, so the Marquis straightforwardly adds that they know he only wants control over the North's authority and natural resources. Roasted! Michael grits his teeth in anger, though it seems he still has enough sense left to walk away instead of causing a scene. The Marquis decides to step away to cool off, so Kazan escorts Rhys and Elaine to their room. On the way, they unexpectedly encounter Julie. She is in a frantic state, breaking things around her while screaming for Caesar. The moment Kazan hears that name, the strength in his knees gives out, and he looks visibly shaken. Julie steps closer to Kazan. Her bloodied hand picks up a shard of glass and points it at him. With a chilling calmness, she asks why he returned when he still can't protect anyone. Kazan can't meet her gaze. He drops to his knees to apologize, but the Marquis quickly pulls him back up. The Marquis then asks Julie when she will stop blaming Kazan for what happened in the past. Julie gives a sharp, bitter smile and says he is responsible too. After all, he was the one who murdered Caesar himself. The Marquis's expression hardens, guilt flickering across his face. But before anything else can be said, Julie collapses. There's serious beef going on here. Ree tries not to pry into their family issues, but he worries it might affect the lumber deal, so the Marquis decides to be honest, and Kazan takes over the explanation himself. Kazan once had an older brother, Caesar, who was 5 years older than him. After their parents, both knights serving in House Lakers, died during an expedition, the Marquis took them in and raised them like his own children. The brothers grew up in House Lakers and later became knights, serving as Julie's personal guards. Caesar was the bold and reliable one who always guided Kazan, while Julie always looked after him. The three of them shared a peaceful, almost ideal youth together, especially Caesar and Julie, whose bond eventually grew into love. But everything changed just a year ago, all because of Kazan's moment of cowardice. That day, they were working deep in an untouched stretch of forest. Julie, who oversaw the family's lumber operations, was on site as usual, with Caesar and Kazan at her side. Suddenly, a massive centipede-like monster, so large it towered over the trees, emerged. Anyone it bit quickly lost their sanity and began attacking the others. It was Kazan's first real combat, and the terrifying scene left him completely overwhelmed. Seeing his fear, Caesar shouted at him to snap out of it, but Kazan panicked and ran instead, drawing the monster's attention. Like any older brother would, Caesar immediately went after him. He stepped in between Kazan and the creature, managing to strike it in the eye, but in the process, he was also fatally injured. Who let this brutal donut move attack become a thing? I remember so many characters and it gives me PTSD. As the monsters retreated, Caesar apologized to both Kazan and Julie, but he soon lost control and nearly attacked Kazan. Left with no other choice, the Marquis executed him with tears in his eyes. They searched the area afterward, but the monster was gone. All they could do was recover Caesar's body along with the other fallen knights. Since that day, Julie shut herself away, refusing to leave her room, while Kazan left and joined the knights under the Marquis's support. This isn't just pain, it's a lifelong scar. That night, Elaine slips out to retrieve the list she needs, but Kazan unexpectedly appears and interrupts her plan. She quickly covers by saying she couldn't sleep and was just taking a walk, only to realize he's doing the same. Before they can continue, a scream echoes through the estate. They rush to Julie's room and find the Marquis there, clearly in shock, saying Julie has disappeared. Kazan immediately blames himself for it. Elaine, however, shuts that down, telling him it's not his fault. She bluntly tells him that instead of wasting time drowning in guilt, he should use that energy to find Julie. That's my girl! Julie runs through the freezing forest barefoot, the white ground stained red with every step she takes. All she can think about is Caesar, her lover. She remembers the day she defied her uncle, who kept pressuring her to marry a noble lord. Back then, she boldly declared that the only man she would ever choose was Caesar, and that made him blush. He knew full well that their relationship would never be accepted because he was just a knight. But he still knelt before her, grateful, promising he would do everything he could to stay by her side. Julie clings to that memory as she stumbles and falls into the snow. She breaks down in tears until the very monster that killed Caesar appears before her. Instead of fear, she smiles and mutters that Caesar must have been lonely. Clutching a bomb in her hand, she swears she will kill the monster and follow him in death. Oh, this poor girl! Grief is consuming her! She is already prepared, but to her shock, Kazan suddenly appears, stepping in to protect her while Ree and Elaine fight the monster. He grabs her arm and tells her urgently that they must return to the manor. Julie snaps and slaps him hard in the face. Her voice breaks as she screams that she has nothing left to live for. Worse than that, She hates how Kazan acts like he isn't grieving at all, like everything that happened is nothing. This is when Kazan finally breaks. He shouts back, his voice shaking, saying that of course he's sad and that he is hurting too. He isn't just living because he wants to. He regrets how weak he was when his brother died and how he made her and the Marquis suffer so much that it gives him nightmares every night. But he refuses to throw away his life. Not when his brother had given up everything so he could live. Tears stream down his face as he begs Julie not to give up either. And those words leave her completely shattered. Who brought onions? I swear, I was fine 5 seconds ago. The monster suddenly creeps up behind them. Kazan reacts instantly. He scoops Julie up and carries her away just in time, forcing the bomb to slip from her hand mid-movement. Elaine catches it on instinct, but in that split second, the monster lashes out. Its attack slices across her arm. Reese, alarmed, pushes himself to his limit and rushes in to finish the creature before turning back to Elaine. Our girl glances at her arm and notices it's already healed. Most likely Bella's power at work making her panic. By the time Rhea approaches her, reaching out to check her injury, she sharply slaps his hand away and insists she'll handle it herself before walking off. Reese is left staring after her, a bit stung by the rejection. She really just turned into that overpowered female lead, huh? Julie wakes up the next day, but even after finally avenging Caesar, she feels so empty. She can't believe the monstrous beast that took her lover was defeated so easily the night before. Elaine then hands Julie the necklace with the ring she picked up last night. Julie clutches it and sobs, saying it was once Caesar's. Was that a wedding ring? I'm not okay, guys. Elaine speaks up, admitting she may not have the right to say this, but she still hopes Julie chooses to live. She tells her that after Julie disappeared last night, both the Marquis and Kazan looked as if they had lost someone precious all over again. Elaine acknowledges Julie's pain and the trauma she carries, but gently urges her not to become another source of grief for the people who still care for her. Hearing this, Julie apologizes to both her father and Kazan, and then declares that she will continue living. However, she admits she's still scared and weak and asks them to stay by her side and help her move forward. You're one brave lady. When Kazan gets a moment alone with Elaine, he asks her curiously if she would be willing to sacrifice herself to save someone dear to her. Without hesitation, she answers that she would do it gladly. When he asks why, she simply admits she doesn't really have a deep reason. She would just be happy knowing she could protect that person. Her answer jolts something in Kazan's memory. He recalls that night clearly. Caesar smiling weakly through his injuries, saying he was glad he died protecting both him and Julie, and hoping they wouldn't let his death turn their lives into something miserable. Kazan had come to understand why he feels drawn to Elaine. It's because she shares so many similarities with his brother. He feels really grateful to her and is eager to return the favor. So our girl takes the opportunity to ask for the visitors list. Meanwhile, Michael throws another tantrum, the memory of his father's words echoing in his mind, telling him to surpass Reese while branding him incompetent. The pressure gnaws at him. If he fails to secure his engagement with Julie, the Emperor will undoubtedly be displeased. He then redirects his frustration into obsessively monitoring Reese instead. He orders his men to uncover Reese's weaknesses they can exploit and strike when the opportunity arises. Back in Killiard, Reese, Elaine, and Kazan successfully return after securing a generous lumber deal with House Lakers. Kazan later hands Elaine a gift from Julie, the copy of the visitor list she had been seeking, which makes our girl so happy. Finally! After Kazan leaves, Reese quietly asks Elaine about her injury. She assures him she's fine now and even apologizes for slapping his hand away that day. As she walks ahead of him, Reese watches her back, realizing that while he feels like he's gotten closer to her, there now seems to be a subtle distance growing between them. Inside her room, Elaine wastes no time and immediately goes through the documents. Her eyes narrow as she finds a mention of a carcass retrieval unit. It is the group that had the easiest access to smuggling pieces of the dragon's remains. As she studies the list further, names begin to stand out. Commander Carius Dennick, Commander Crystal Jewel, and Commander Talos Asgar. At last, Elaine finally has a lead. At the same time, Ree also receives unexpected good news. A clue about Balthor's whereabouts. They arrive in Moltagne and head toward an inn, where they are set to meet the knight who uncovered a lead. As they walk, Elaine grows anxious, worrying that her cover might be exposed if Balthor notices she hasn't aged at all. A part of her even thinks it might be safer if they fail to find him. But she refuses to be selfish, especially knowing that Balthor is the one who raised Rhys into the man he is today. If finding him means she has to leave Rhys aside, she's already prepared to accept it. They meet with the knight, who reports that he has found something connected to Balthor, and it turns out to be the jewelry currently being worn by the innkeeper. Rhys immediately recognizes it and decides to investigate personally, ordering his knights to return to Killiard without him. He approaches the innkeeper and offers a large sum of money to buy the necklace. She agrees without hesitation, but the moment she hands it over, a boy named Jody snatches it away, insisting it belongs to him. The innkeeper tries to take it back, but the boy refuses and shouts that he found it 10 years ago in the Haunted Mountain. Rhys steps in and offers him gold coins in exchange for more details. The boy describes the owner as a very tall man with yellow hair, blue eyes, and 2 scars on his right hand. That makes Rhys grin because it perfectly matches Balthor. They decide to let the kid eat first, and as he does, he quietly shares that he's an orphan. The inn's owners took him in, but they treated him poorly, like barely feeding him and making him work all day. Because of that, even though he's already 15, he looks much smaller than his age. Afterward, Rhys turns the conversation back to business and asks how Jody came across the owner of the pendant. The boy explains that he remembers the man because of someone named Sharon, who used to live in the haunted woods but suddenly disappeared one day. Sharon had long seaweed-like hair, and the townsfolk avoided him because of how dirty and gloomy he seemed. The local curious kids told Jody to bring them Sharon's hair in exchange for stopping their bullying. Trying to escape their harassment, Jody sneaked into Sharon's cabin. There, he ended up sharing his situation, and to his surprise, Sharon calmly cut off a portion of his own hair and handed it over with a gentle smile. That moment left Jody stunned. Sharon was actually kind. After that, the bullying stopped, and Jody began visiting him more often. While he found Sharon kind, something about him felt strange. He would often glance toward the window and mutter that everything was his fault. One day, Jody tried to touch a crystal ball in the cabin, which caused Sharon to quickly hide it away. Then one day, on his way to the cabin, Jody ran into Balthor. Balthor gently patted his head and advised him to stay out of the woods that day, saying something dangerous might happen. Feeling scared, Jody followed the warning and didn't go. That very night, Sharon's cabin was engulfed in flames. Jody immediately goes to the cabin, but all he can do is wait for the morning rain to finally put out the flames. When he steps inside the charred remains of the home, the only thing he finds is the pendant. Since that day, a ghost has been seen appearing in the woods. Villagers who dare enter the cabin are later found frozen to death, and many of them blame Sharon for the curse. But Jody doesn't believe it. He thinks Sharon isn't responsible at all. After all, neither Sharon nor Balthor is ever found inside the cabin, only traces that they were there at some point. Jody then recalls something important. Days before Balthor appeared, Sharon had been acting strangely. He was constantly on edge, drinking more than usual, and staring out the window all day. Then Jody recalls it clearly. Sharon muttering under his breath that he doesn't want to live as Sharon anymore, and that his real name was Talos Asgar. It sounds familiar to Elaine, and her eyes widen as the realization hits her. Talos Asgar is on the roster list! Since it is already late, Rhys decides to continue the investigation the next day. Hearing this, Jody shyly admits that he actually has nowhere to stay, as he has already been kicked out by the inn owners. Rhys and Elaine agree to arrange a room for him, and Rhys assures Jody that he will be protected during their stay in the village. The promise makes Jody visibly happy. He says he's never really felt protected before, and even wishes they could be his parents. Rhys pauses for a moment at that, then gently shifts the topic, telling him to make sure he keeps the money safe. I mean, why not? Rhys and Elaine make their way to the snowy forest and eventually find the cabin. Suddenly, Rhys feels a chilling presence. He looks ahead and sees glowing red eyes staring back at them. Panic hits instantly, and he shouts for Elaine to close her eyes. He finds himself standing in a burning sabeka, the air thick with smoke and screams. It dawns on him immediately. This is an illusion. The specters are here, monsters that feed on a person's life force by exploiting their deepest traumas. Then Balthor appears, reaching out and pleading for him to take his hand. But Reed doesn't hesitate. He slashes the illusion away without a second thought, refusing to be deceived. Love my mentally healthy man! He breaks free, but oh no, Elaine doesn't! Worse, her body begins to grow dangerously cold. If she doesn't wake up soon, she will freeze to death. Inside her hallucination, Elaine sees Ree, badly wounded, bloodied, crying as he grabs her and asks why she killed his mother. Reese decides to defeat the specters directly to force her out of it, but before he moves, Elaine, still unconscious, grabs his hand and tearfully begs him not to go while calling him Ree. We'll stop here for today, guys. Yes, I know you want more. Don't forget to ask for the next part in the comment section. Thank you guys for watching and for your support. Please subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot. Till the next one.